Shadowland, the boxing ring. Here is a short story about a boxer who enters the ring believing he must defeat every shadow he sees, until he discovers that the true battle is not against an opponent, but against the thoughts he has mistaken for truth. Every Saturday night, the old arena filled with cheering crowds, bright lights, and the deep ringing of a brass bell. At the center stood a boxing ring surrounded by red ropes. The best fighter in the city was a man named Tomas. He was fast, strong, and feared by nearly everyone who faced him. Yet before every match, Tomas felt the same cold fear rise in his stomach. He never told anyone. His trainer, Lena, noticed. "What are you afraid of?" she asked one evening. "My opponent," Tomas answered. Lena looked across the ring at a quiet fighter warming up beneath the lights. "No," she said. "You are afraid of what you believe he can take from you." Tomas tightened his gloves. "He can take my title. And without the title, who are you?" Tomas did not answer. The bell rang. Tomas stepped into the ring. The arena lights cast long shadows across the canvas. His opponent's shadow stretched toward him, tall and distorted. Tomas stared at it. The shadow seemed larger than the man himself. In his mind, it whispered, "He will defeat you. The crowd will laugh. You will become nothing." Tomas charged forward. He swung wildly, but his opponent stepped aside. Tomas swung again. Another miss. With each punch, the shadow seemed to multiply. It appeared behind the ropes, beneath the lights, and across the faces in the crowd. Some shadows looked threatening. Others looked welcoming. One promised victory. Another predicted humiliation. Tomas could not tell which one to trust. By the third round, he was exhausted. During the break, Lena leaned close. "You are not fighting the boxer," she said. "Of course I am." "No, you are fighting every interpretation in your mind." Tomas shook his head. "He is the problem." Lena pointed toward the other corner. The opponent sat quietly, breathing and drinking water. "He is standing there," Lena said. "The terror is happening here." She touched Tomas gently on the forehead. The bell rang again. Tomas rose slowly. This time he did not rush forward. He watched. His opponent moved left. Tomas noticed the thought. "He is trying to trap me." Then another thought came. "He is afraid of me." Then another. "I must win to exist." Tomas heard each thought without immediately believing it. The ring became strangely quiet, even though the crowd was still shouting. His opponent threw a punch. Tomas stepped aside. Another punch came. Tomas blocked it calmly. For the first time, he saw the man before him, instead of the story he had built around him. The fighter was not a monster. He was another frightened man trying to prove something beneath the lights. Tomas felt something soften. The match continued. Both men fought with skill, but the hatred had gone out of Tomas's fists. When the final bell rang, neither boxer knew who had won. The judges whispered among themselves. The crowd waited. Then the announcer raised the other fighter's hand. Tomas had lost. For one long moment, the old shadows returned. Failure, shame, nothingness. Tomas felt the urge to blame the judges, the crowd, and his opponent. Instead, he looked toward Lena. She placed one hand over her heart. Tomas closed his eyes. "Holy Spirit," he whispered, "show me what this means without the ego's filter." He waited. The shadows did not disappear immediately, but they lost their authority. Tomas opened his eyes and walked toward the winner. He raised the man's glove. The crowd grew silent. "You fought well," Tomas said. The other boxer looked surprised. "So did you." As they stood together beneath the lights, Tomas saw both of their shadows on the canvas. One looked tall, one looked small. A moment later, the lights shifted, and the shadows changed places. Tomas laughed. Neither shadow had ever told the truth about either man. Months later, Tomas became a trainer. Before every match, he told his fighters, "The ring is neutral. Your opponent is not your prison. What you believe about him is what you must bring to the light." Above the entrance to the ring, Tomas hung a sign. "What I perceive is not the problem. The perspective I choose is where the battle begins." Some fighters still entered believing they had enemies. Some still fought for identity, approval, or survival. But Tomas taught them to pause beneath the lights and ask, "Am I seeing a person, or am I fighting a shadow?" And whenever the bell rang, he reminded them, "You do not escape Shadowland by defeating every shadow. You leave it by turning toward the light." May we sing, rest, and dance our way home together.